Hey everyone, back with chapter 39 of Mark. And this is what it talks about. It says, a man with a withered hand. Again, he entered the synagogue talking about Christ. And a man was there with a withered hand. And they watched Jesus to see whether he would heal him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man with the withered hand, come here. And he said to them, is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do harm, to save life or to kill? But they were silent, and he looked around at them with anger, grieved at their hardness of heart. And Jesus, who is God, of course, he got very angry at the Jews for not believing, in him. And he said to the man, stretch out your hand. He stretched it out, and his hand was restored. The Pharisees went out and immediately held council, or held a meeting, with the Herodians, which were like the top Jews at the time, against Christ, and how to destroy Christ. A great crowd follows Jesus. Jesus withdrew with his disciples to the sea, and a great crowd followed from Galilee and Judea and Jerusalem and Idumea, and from beyond the Jordan and from around Tyre and Sidon. When the great crowd heard of all that he was doing, they came to him, and he told his disciples to have a boat ready for him because of the crowd, lest they crush him, for he had healed many, so that all who had diseases pressed around him and touched him. And whenever the unclean spirits or the demons saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, you are the Son of God. And he strictly ordered them not to make him known. And so even the demons of hell and Satan himself knows that Jesus is the true God. You have all these atheists out there that want to say there's no God, and you have all these, false religions and all this stuff that honors false gods that don't even exist. If Satan and his demons, even they know that Christ is God, why can't you believe that? Even the devil knows that Jesus is God, and they bow down to him. And it's just amazing. The 12 apostles. And he went up on the mountain and called to him those who he desired, or those who he wanted to be his disciples. See, God chooses. And they came to him. And he appointed 12, whom he also named apostles, so that they might be with him, and he might send them out to preach, and have authority to cast out demons. He appointed the 12, Simon, to whom he gave the name Peter, James, the son of Zebediah, and John, the brother of James, to whom he gave the name Boanerges, that is, son of thunder, Andrew, and Philip, and Bartholomew, and Matthew, and Thomas, and James, the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus, and Simon the Canaan, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him. So Christ, of course, went out and he chose his disciples. They didn't choose them. Then he went home, and the crowd gathered again, so that they could not even eat. And when his family heard of it, they went out to seize him, for they were saying, he is out of his mind. Even Christ's family, his father Joseph, his mother Mary, and all of his brothers and sisters. They're telling Jesus, why are you out of your mind to go out and do what you're doing? But see, at the time they didn't realize that he was God. They just, thought he was another human being. But he's God, and he's going to heal who he wants to heal, and he's going to do what he wants to do. And of course, Mary and them find out later, that hey, this is God. He is God in human form. Blasphemy against the Holy Spirit. And the scribes who came down from Jerusalem were saying, he is possessed by Beelzebub. The Jews at the time, they didn't really realize what Christ was doing. They didn't realize that Christ is God. He was healing people, through his Spirit, through his Holy Spirit. And the Jews thought he was possessed or whatever, and that's not true. He is God, and he was healing people through his Spirit. And by the prince of demons he cast out the demons, and he called them to him and said to them in parables, how can Satan cast out Satan? If a kingdom is divided against itself, the kingdom cannot stand. And if a house is divided against itself, that house will not be able to stand. And if Satan has risen up against himself and is divided, he cannot stand, but is coming to an end. But no one can enter a strong man's house and plunder his goods unless his first binds the strong man, then indeed he may plunder his house. Truly I say to you, all sins will be forgiven the children of men, and whatever blasphemies they utter, meaning what Christ is saying here is, any blasphemy, they utter against him, he will forgive them. He will forgive people, of all sins, even the sin of them talking against God. He will forgive them for that, because he's God, and he's a loving God, and he's a forgiving God. But whoever blasphemies against the Holy Spirit, meaning whoever talks against the Holy Spirit, Christ says he will never forgive them, but is guilty of eternal sin or eternal damnation. For they were saying he has an unclean spirit. So what Christ is saying here is, he will forgive you of all sins besides one, and that's talking against the Holy Spirit. If you've done that, your death sentence is, you have an eternal death sentence. God will not forgive you for that sin. If you speak out against the Holy Spirit, you will go to hell. There is no forgiveness. And that's just it. So, hope you haven't done that. Hopefully you haven't. Hopefully, you can still repent of your sins and live your life for God. Because God will forgive you of all sins, but he will not forgive you for talking against the Holy Spirit. Jesus' mother and brothers. And his mother and his brothers came, and standing outside they sent to him and called him, and a crowd was sitting around him, and they said to him, your mother and your brothers are outside seeking you. And he answered them, who are my mother and my brothers? And looking about at those who sat around him, he said, here are my mother and brothers, for whoever does the will of God is my brother and his sister and mother. So what he's saying here is, whoever does his will, he counts as his family. It's pretty awesome, man. The true God, who died on the cross for our sins, who rose from the grave to defeat Satan, sin, hell, and death. He says if you do his will in your life, he will bring you into his family. It's pretty awesome stuff, man. It's chapter 3, very, very interesting chapter, and about chapter 4 here shortly.